Welcome to the Practicing Drummer Podcast. My name is Craig, and in this episode, I'm bringing you a conversation I had with Geoff Clapp in March of 2024. Geoff spent the majority of his career in New Orleans, where he was mentored by Ellis Marsalis, Herlin Riley, Shannon Powell, and many others. Aside from having a couple of great albums out as a leader, he's played with Dianne Reeves, Benny Green, Charlie Hunter, Sam Fribush, Wynton Marsalis, Nicolas Payton, and the list goes on and on. During the interview, our connection dropped a couple of times, so I had to do some editing around that, and I put some music transitions in, but I did my best to keep the integrity of the conversation. With that, let's get right into it with Geoff Clapp. All right, well, Geoff Clapp, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I know we've been trying to do this for a while.
Yeah,
and,
going back and forth, yeah.
Yeah, and I really appreciate your patience as I'm kind of getting ramped up back on doing these. So,
yeah.
How's your life going? You're back in North Carolina now, right?
Yes, sir. I am in Charlotte, a little place called Indian Trail. That's a little neighborhood that's inside Indian Trail called Lake Park.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, it's very nice. It's very, not exclusive at all. It's just very not of Charlotte. And it feels like you're in another universe somewhere. And I love that because my story goes through many, many chapters.
Yeah, right.
As you know, as we all do, as all the greatest drummers like myself have ever had to go through to become amazing. Don't know if you heard of me, but
well, you are amazing.
I mean, look, it's all God. Honestly, it is. Thank you. And I've worked my arse off to get here. Most of my work has been experiential, like failing on gigs, going to New Orleans, going to School of the Arts, being super nervous on my high school snare drum, Will Coxon thing.
Yeah.
It's really, I never performed, really, except for my brother and some talent shows. And wasn't really a performer. I'd done some things at church but I was always super nervous, but I knew I loved it. I knew I was like, dude, this is who I am, but it's going to be a long way till I get there.
And this was in North Carolina, because you grew up in North Carolina, right? Now you're living back there.
I was born in Greensboro. Kind of grew up in High Point, Raleigh, Cary, Reidsville, a little bit of South Carolina, Hare in Texas for a couple years when we were little bitties, which is probably one of my favorite periods of my life because I think we were 5 to 7 there, pre-K, K in first grade, I think, first or second.
Uh-huh.
And my parents got me the toy kit for Christmas.
Oh, nice.
And that was it. After that, because I banged on crap all the time since I was a little dude. Like most drummers that stick it out from a kid's perspective, I've been doing this since I was born. Just come out kicking.
Yeah.
And so that was oh, what do you do with these things? And so I had the Muppets on album or 8-track.
Oh, right, of course. Yeah, me too.
The Muppets. Yeah, man. And I would just have a blast and say, I love this, but never really thought hey, I'm going to do it for a living.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went to School of the Arts to get out of High Point, North Carolina, because at the time it wasn't the cultural mecca it is now. It's much hipper now.
Where was School of the Arts?
School of the Arts was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
It was 30 minutes away, but still far enough away from, your high school.
Uh-huh.
Even though I loved everybody in my high school. And so some of my greatest friends are some of the drumline buddies, like Travis Thompson and Rob Garrett, Dan Smith. I remember all those dudes, man. And I just had lunch with Travis the other day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, my drumming roots are really in North Carolina, if you need to know.
Okay, and so were you, when you were younger then, and after getting that toy drum set, but then getting a little more serious, were you, I'm assuming, school band and marching band? And
Right. So I came to High Point, and then that's when I got serious in 6th grade, right? Because they had band.
Okay.
Exactly. And then I went to a summer camp before that to prepare on the pad. Remember those pad camps where you just ticket paradiddles and doubles for 2 weeks, 5 days a week from 10 to 2.
Oh, wow.
One of those little snare drum camps. It was great. And some of those dudes were in there, and that kind of led me to that. Anywhere I could just be sitting on a drum or hitting a drum, I was all about it. Band, plays.
Were you doing private lessons at all?
Yes, with a guy named Steve. I can't remember his last name. He was one of the students of Massey Johnson, great percussionist from North Carolina who played with the symphonies in Winston-Salem, Brevard.
Oh, okay.
Massey Johnson was my teacher at School of the Arts. But before I got there, Massey was like 75. So he had already taught Steve, and then Steve gave me drum lessons and snare drum lessons. So to prep me to get into the school. And he gave me some marimba lessons. And Frank Worrell gave me my first drum set lesson. You know who that is, man?
I don't know that name.
Dude, bro, your next interview needs to be with Frank Worrell. If he would even do it, I'd probably have to go track him down.
Okay, maybe. Yeah, maybe you can help with that.
He's the quintessential hippie, man. So he lives out of his drum room, still teaches. You know, he's like, I don't know how old he's. He's timeless. He's like the Grateful Dead, man. He just doesn't die. You know, but he's around, and he was my first jazz teacher, and I was like, dude, this guy's cool, man. And he was playing with Wynton Marsalis in the square at UNCG or somewhere like that. Yeah, I think it was UNCG. And then he let me sit in. I played Caravan, and I probably sounded horrible, but apparently he and Wynton saw the talent and saw the potential. And so Frank was very pivotal in saying, hey, man, this is what jazz drummers do. And at school, the only way to play drum set was to be in the jazz band.
Okay, yeah, right.
So I had to give up my dreams of playing with U2 or the Police or Rush.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I was surprised in doing a little bit of research to hear that you were such a big Neil Peart guy.
That's my dude, man. It's not just Neil's drumming; it's his writing, his life, and his the way he frames songs.
Mm-hmm.
He frames them like a writer frames a paragraph. It's not so much like the form as it is like a story. And then the drums come over the story, whether they're going through 6, 7, 13 or 4, 5, or 7. It's never a thing like sometimes jazz can be like, hey man, we're gonna do something at 7. It's gonna be 7. And it's very fluid.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the Brand X was, or like even Zeppelin, man, had a fluidity about their stuff, man. You know, Kashmir, for example, there's a fluidity there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm more about the energy of the music and the spirit of the music than anything. You know, Rush had that energy, man, like stank face energy, like the Witch Hunt, man. Oh my God, still to this day, like Witch Hunt is one of my favorite pieces of music from beginning to end. It's brilliant.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. I heard you. I actually go back to these videos quite often, but over the last couple of days, I watched them a bunch. You played at Monk's over the last few years, a couple times down in Austin.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much I love those videos. I mean, when I need to be uplifted inspired, I put those on and like really.
Thank you, man. Wow, dude, that just made my year. Thank you, man.
I mean, really, they're really great, and I'll link in the show notes. But, you know, specifically that concert that you did with the sax and bass trio, Jerry Espinoza, and then James. And you and James hooked up like brothers, you know?
Yeah, that was very last minute. We met that day. And we all like, okay, we got a trio gig. What do you want to play? And they thought I was bringing in tunes. I was like, bro, between the 3 meat biscuits we got in our head, we got so much music. Let's just play, and we'll call tunes. And we just, you know, kind of sound checked. And then it was a spiritual thing, man, from that point on.
It was, I mean, because you brought up the odd time signatures, and I think you guys did Skylark in 7, but it's not like you did Skylark in 7. Like, you just played Skylark, but it happened to be in 7.
Like, Jason Marsalis would be like, okay, why do that? He's like, why do cats do that? And now I understand. I'm like, yeah, why do cats do that? Like, dude, life's not in 4/4.
Mm-hmm,
I mean, come on, man. Seasons aren't 4/4. It's just groove, man. I don't even think of shit like that.
Yeah.
I think of like, first of all, thank you for saying that, because I'm going through some things. Honestly, the last 2 days have been really, really emotional and hard. I'm not going to go into it because we all have our thing. But the thing I'm dealing with is either be an artist, true to yourself, or become this dude you're not. You know what I mean? And so I'm just saying, I think I'm being cool. I like myself. And the drums, especially all you drummers listening, man, the drums have been the one catalyst that keeps me healed, keeps me grooving, keeps me humble as hell. And it keeps me strong. And I go to the gym for the drums, and the drums for the gym. And then really for the people. Like we played for some special need kids last week, dude. I mean, these guys were just, you know, dance. They were just free, totally free in life, and just dancing and loving the music. And I'm like, that's what it's about, bro. They're healing me back. knowing they're enjoying what we're doing, you know. And it was like a Motown gig. So I'm not a Motown drummer, but I did my best.
Oh,
And
I'm
it
sure it was
felt
great.
good.
Yeah.
And this singer, Dawn Anthony, she's amazing. So she puts these cool people together. And that's what it takes, man, the relationship of the congruent spirits or congruent mindset or just congruent personalities, you know, that we have something in common.
Yeah.
That's why I play the drums, to share the love of humanity and then to heal people, then heal back. But being a working drummer has always been such a weird thing. Always hand to mouth, or you're doing really well, or like sucking. You know, I mean, what do other drummers say? I mean, how do they do it? Marry a rich woman? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all over the map, right?
Yeah.
But speaking of gigs, real quick, did I just see on Instagram that you were in Bahrain?
Yes.
And were you playing over there, or was that?
I was playing 3 weeks there, and flying over those Middle Eastern countries, knowing the turmoil that, you know, tribes and people and countries are going through. And I'm going to play jazz at this amazingly ridiculous, nice 5-star Cipriani's Italian jazz club, which is, you know, world famous for great jazz, great music. The dichotomy of that, I was like, you know what, man? I'm here to help uplift the spirits around this area. That's my job, you know. And, you know, luckily we get taken care of. And then most importantly, you take care of the people back. And we ended our 3 weeks and everybody was family, everybody hugged. It was like, man, that's what it's about, man. It's not like a gig. It's a calling. Because I've done gigs in China and hated my life. I'm sure you have too, man. Like, you know, what am I doing in my life right now? You know, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got to pay my rent.
Right.
I would say it's like, it used to be a lot more, but now it's less gigs, pay rent, more gigs, but pay my spirit back. And pay, you know, rent. I mean, look at Greg Hutchinson, man. That cat's a bad dude. And he's had a great, ridiculously rich life that the drums provided. And what drummers aren't, the young cats, man, if I will, for a minute, the young cats don't realize, man, you have to get the correct information. You can't just, I mean, if you look at a Brian Blade, bro, the reason he's such a bad boy is because he's got the correct information. And he can do the basics 101. He can not play a fill for like 100 measures if he needs to, you know. And he's not. I mean, he's Brian, so he's a little special, but we're all special. You know, everybody's special. Clarence Finn, all these cats, and my generation of cats like Carl Allen, Tane, all. I would say, I mean, they're above me, but these youngsters seem today are so distracted by their cell phones that they sound like that. They sound like fragmented. There's no fluid, straight groove that I'm hearing, except for a couple of dudes that have the right information. So on an intellectual standpoint, it's being lost, man. And the only reason I got it was because of older cats. Older cats would say, hey, Clapp, you sound good, but...
Yeah, what were some of those lessons you learned from people telling you kind of like what not to do?
All right. Well, Herlin, for one, he said, hey, man, Clapp, listen, bro, I was checking out your solo, and he said, man, you got great hands, and you sound great, man. You do some stuff I don't even do. But he said, bro, you're not telling me. You're not saying anything. He's like, you got to say it, repeat it, say it again, and then change it. And then that'll give you a point of departure. And he's like, then your creativity will kick in. I was like, you know, of course I was being a little biatch. I'm killing, man. You know, it's like, it hurts your feelings, but a couple years later, you're like, dude, that cat is absolutely right. So my teacher, David Lee, Brian Blade, and I, and a lot of great other New Orleans drummers teacher, the great David Lee Jr., played with Dizzy and, you know, saxophone colossus, what's his name?
Oh, Sonny Rollins.
Sonny, all the cats, everybody. And so we were fortunate enough to study with him at University of New Orleans our first couple of years. And he would just say, hey, no, you're playing rhythm, play melody. Why are you just banging the drums? He's like, if you're just going to do that, don't sit on this instrument. It's an instrument. It's a piano, but it's shaped like this. One thing that actually Blade said in my car, we just watched, we watched Dumb and Dumber, you know, movie.
Yeah.
So we went to the movie one afternoon. On the way home, we were listening to Tony Williams with Miles, just some of the old classic shit. And he's like, bro, I just love how Tony paints, you know. And I was young. I was like 23, so I was like, wow, you know, that's deep. That's just not rhythm. You know, you think about Stuart Copeland kind of paints. on Ghost in the Machine, those grooves are paintings, man, because they move you on such a deep, untouchable level that words can't even get to. That it's just like the power of the vibration of sound, and then using that as a paintbrush, I was like, what? And then I kind of understood where Brian was going and where I wasn't going and where I wanted to go. And one, actually, bro, the deepest thing I ever heard from an old cat, other than 1,000 from Ellis Marsalis, which that's a long story, was we were at Lincoln Center, and it was Hank Jones, I believe. Or no, Tommy Flanagan. No, dude, it was Hank Jones. Tommy was hanging out. It was me, Tommy, Ellis Marsalis in the green room, like just us four. And Mr. Marsalis was like, hey, Mr. Flanagan, this is my drummer, Geoff Clapp. And he's like, oh, nice to meet you, man. And Tommy Flanagan, nice to meet you. And Hank Jones says, he goes, without missing a beat, he goes, so many drummers, man, so little time. I was like, what?
That's deep.
And then, yeah, it's really deep because drummers don't keep time anymore, man. They just play a bunch of shit over the time. Including myself. So that really that's always stuck with me on every gig. I think, okay, keep great time, support the cats, make music. And then, like Wayne Shorter said, man, when you find that moment, stay in that moment as long as you can. That's the artistry of what we do, the humanity of what we do. That's why you go back to museums and check out the exact same piece of painting, and it's different every time because you're growing. And so that just those and other than that, older cats going, stop playing so much shit,
Right.
Sure. Time. Yeah,
sure.
One of the old cats like, dude, what are you doing? Like, stop, play time. You're rushing. Stop. What's up with your left hand?
Well, yeah, hearing you talk about, what Blade said about painting reminds me of something that I heard you say once that triggered a memory of an Ed Blackwell quote that's been in my mind. So I heard you refer to your playing as trying to create a symphony of rhythm.
Wow.
I think you said that. You did. That's profound,
that's
right?
Pretty smart. Needs to be a t-shirt.
Yeah, right. But,
yeah, that's smart.
As I've been thinking about you for a while, we've been prepping for this, Ed Blackwell keeps coming to me. And something that a teacher told to me that Ed Blackwell passed on to him is that you should make your drumming sound like singing, but feel like dancing.
That's awesome.
And
that's awesome.
That's what I get from your playing. And
well, David Lee, melody, man. Tane. Everything Tane does is melodic, except for the ridiculous Tane-less rhythmic stuff. Right? Like everything, all my favorite Brian Blade, the early Peter Martin trio with him and Chris Thomas, like 94, man. Like, it's just like, yeah, they speed up or they slow down, but dude, it's such a story. It's such a like inspiration. Just, man. And I saw Ed Blackwell in New Orleans.
Oh, you really? You did?
1989.
Oh, wow.
It was one of his last performances, and he was old, but dude, it's him and Donald Harrison, and the Batiste, and Ellis Marsalis, and like all the cats, all these bass players that no one will ever hear about that passed away in the mid-90s, man. All these great, and this other cat, dude, used to smoke a pipe, man. And he was always cool shit, He was like 70, and here I am, a little goofy, skinny white dude. We're all dumbasses trying to play jazz, and they were just so cool versus a lot of cats anywhere else have been like, they've been like, get away from me, dude, you're an idiot, come see me in 30 years. These guys were like welcoming, and they're like, hey, go hear this cat, go play with this bass player. It was just a university in itself,
Yeah, and you were really embraced by the guys down there, and Shannon and Herlin. And what do you think was that something about you and your open curiosity, or is it about the culture or
that's the best question I've ever been asked in my life. And I'll give you the most honest answer, man. It's because I'm cool and I was raised right. And I know how to respect what's important. So when I got there, man, I just heard Herlin was the first real jazz drummer, other than Dan Brubeck and Frank Worrell, of course, but like on a heavier level. Like, Frank's no Herlin. Come on, man. I'm no Herlin. No one's a Herlin. But it was just his spirit. And then I said, man, I got to New Orleans and I was just like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's different.
Why is every time they play the drums, I want to dance. I love my life. I'm happy as a clam, and I'm just like elated. Like, what? It's like church, man. It's like the Holy Spirit just says, "Hey, I'm gonna speak through Shannon Powell with Harry Connick Jr." Man, you know, the Holy Spirit, man. I think any type of swing groove comes from God. You know, man. I mean, of course, man does it, but I don't think man invented it. It was already innately part of our DNA. So, you know, you have to think creativity, creator. So we're creatives, right? We're just wheels in the car. We're cogs in the wheel. We're, you know, we're the wooden wheels on the Little House on the Prairie. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully don't break.
Yeah.
Hopefully had a pretty good blacksmith. But like, I think I went out of my way to keep in touch with Herlin, but he invited me to. I mean, he was really cool. And he invited me to his house. Went and took a lesson. We spent 55 minutes eating pancakes with his wife, Pat, talking just about shit, not even the drums. And then he took me to the drums, and for 5 minutes, he gave me a lesson. And I still work on it today.
Oh, really?
Tank, pop, boom, boom, not boom, boom, two, boom, 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 pop, bass drum, top, tang, 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 tick, tang, 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 got, boom, 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 tang, tang. Like, what? This, and he would do it. And he would do it, and it wouldn't be a rhythm. It'd just be like a freaking happy moment. You're like, I want to get to that happy moment where he is. Like, he's just happy playing a groove. And obviously there's thousands and 20, 30,000 hours with him and Ahmad Jamal and Wynton and all these. But it wasn't until later that I realized he had grown up in New Orleans and his whole family were musicians, man. So he,
right.
You know, it's kind of it's not unfair, but it's like, damn, you know, I didn't get that till I was 19, and I had to turn everything around. But I would go and sit in behind Shannon and Herlin and Johnny Vodakovich, man, and play his drums at a hotel that were tuned like Tony Williams. So you're like, you know, you can't even touch these things. But I think the reason I was so accepted was because of timing. I knew Wynton, and Wynton said, go study with my father. So they kind of had heard about me a little bit, because this was 1989, man. Now jazz universities are ubiquitous. But at the time, they brought Coca-Cola brought Ellis Marsalis to lead up UNO. And then Harold Batiste, you know, was there, and Victor Goins and Steve Mazzacast, all the cats, man, Bill Huntington. So being so young and ignorant and studying with like 16 and older people was a huge factor.
Yeah.
And then we had hungry people like Brian Blade, Eric Rivas, Nicolas Payton, Mark Turner, Victor Atkins, you know, Antoine Dry, Jeremy Davenport, Chris Thomas, all these super Martin Butler, all these super Bryce Winston, you know, all these cats. If you Google them now, you're like, damn, these are the cats, man. And we, you know, Nick would come and play drums, and he'd play bass, and he would show up everybody on not so much his facility, but his freaking knowledge.
Oh yeah,
you know. Yeah. And so that was one, and I would just go wherever Herlin and Shannon played and just freaking be a fly on. Hopefully they didn't see me. I would sometimes wear a hat and sit in the back because I don't want to sit in, man. But them making me sit in made me the man I am today. And I make all my students sit in. If I see a student at a gig, unless it's a concert, they're gonna sit in. Absolutely, you have to.
Yeah,
because you will walk out of here a better man.
Oh
right?
yeah,
you know.
So you talked a little bit about being nervous playing when you were younger and doing your snare drum thing. When you would sit in for Herlin, Shannon, I mean, come on, what was that like, dude, and how did you deal with that?
I didn't. You dealt with it. That it lets you know immediately where you are as a drummer. Immediately,
instantly,
and you're like, okay, I don't suck. I don't sound like that, you know, but I do sound sucky compared to that. And so, you know, me and Stanton Moore, all these drummers, Kevin O'Day, so many of them, some Canadian cats came down. We would all go hoping to not be the dude to sit in and watch our other dudes sit in,
right,
and then talk about that, like, you know. But there was a place in Tremaine. I'll give you two stories. I'll answer that with two stories, bro. You know, this is when Shannon was out with Harry Connick. I mean, he was killing me, like his corridor. It's so light.
Oh yeah,
little SD4s and like that guitar ass center Dookie ass cymbal he played. It's terrible cymbal. It was like 300, but he would just play it so light, just you know, just ugh. And so I sat in behind him a lot in Tremay at Joe's Cozy Corner, which isn't there anymore. But and then you know, and so I was in no shape to sit in, but I sat in anyway. And he taught me how to play like that. Basically, he's like, man, Clapp, you just gotta, what are you hearing? Play your corridor. But don't play my quarter note on my drums. They'll play your quarter note on my drums. And I would notice every time he and Herlin or any other drummer in New Orleans would come in and they were playing, they would start showing off. And it was out of respect. It wasn't out of competition, like a New York stupid ass, that stupid shit cats do that I felt. I'm sure they don't, but that's what I felt. And then at one time, Herlin, I call it my burning down. You know that Omar Hakim song? Sting song with Omar called I Burn For You?
Oh, yeah.
1, 2. It was like, so Herlin was playing his groove at Snug Harbor and he was like 10. I don't know if you ever seen Herlin's kid. It's spread out. Big man kid, big boy kid. Okay. It's not a little jazzer, but it's like big ball kid. So I had to come up and he's like, Clapp, come on, man. Come play this groove. I want to play trumpet. And his trumpet was sitting there. I was like, what you going to do, man? So, of course, you step up on stage in front of, a sold out Friday night show with whoever in the band just killing during the solo. And I'm going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, tiggity. But I'm going tiggity, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, tiggity. And then as soon as I started playing, the energy went skapow. And I had to build it back up. And that was the most humbling drum set drummer moment of my life. It's like, wow, man, it really takes muscle. It takes a lot of intensity, and it takes intention. Your intention is never to lose the groove. Because once I stepped into that, it was like stepping into a wave and getting blown back. And then all of a sudden, am I going to survive this? I'm getting crushed against the seafloor, scraped head, shells on. That's what it felt like. I was getting hit by a car because I stepped into his energy and it was too much for me, man. And so I had to come back and create my own energy, which today I would freaking kill it. I'd go up and be like, oh, yeah, man. But now when I was 15 years ago, when I wasn't ready for that. But I was ready for it because life put me there. God put me there knowing this is going to humble you, man. And then I started really shedding.
Yeah.
So
what was shedding like when you were down there, when you were having these experiences?
Yeah.
And
it was hard. Well, we were gigging a lot. Actually, we started gigging in college, most cats do, but we created gigs. We would go out and make a coffee shop, buy a piano at Werlines and Metairie and Bryce Winston. And I used to do duos with Mark Turner there all the time.
Oh, wow.
And so the shed was more the gig than shedding.
Okay.
The gigs were the shedding. And then we would practice and shit, and we try to get great, mostly playing to records. And I play a lot to Oscar Peterson, even though they speed up a lot. And Blade would be checking out Ahmad Jamal. So I really got into the Ahmad Jamal trio, 5860, the classics.
Yeah, right.
Vernell and Israel's Beat. And I would watch musicians that were my peers who were much light years ahead of me listen to music. So when you listen to music with somebody who knows music, you listen to music differently. I would sit in Brooklyn with Greg Hutchison and I would just sit there listening and watch him listen. I would learn how to listen. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've had that experience.
My dad
too,
never said, hey, this is how you listen to music. He would just have all these classical records and I'd enjoy them. But it wasn't until I met Brian and Nick and all these guys that would actually sit down and study the music and become part of them. You let it deeply ingrain themselves in their mind, their life, their daily routine, and just the spiritual, musical soil of their body. And it's and that's when things started to really shift, being a drummer top, but whatever I was, into a groove person, somebody who could groove.
Oh yeah, and you can groove.
Oh, but I used to not to, man. I used to suck. And then Herlin would take me to parades on snare drum with him and Shannon. And one day, Stanley Stevens, if you ever Google, anybody listen to this, Google Stanley Stevens, New Orleans drummer. He was kind of like an Ed Blackwell meets Baby Dodds. He did both. And he was Ellis's drummer at the time. I didn't find this out until 2 years ago, but Jamil Sharif told me that. But it was during that period, man, when I was 20 and Herlin would I would start playing with them on snare drum in the street, and Herlin would take his hands and put my sticks on the snare and be like, no. He would just say no. He'd be like, no. And so I'd be like, okay, cool. So I wouldn't play for an hour and watch them play. But I'd be carrying the snare drum. And finally I'd say, all right, come on in on the real simple shit. But when they pulled in front of Stanley's house, and it was Stanley's funeral, and Herlin picked me up in this big brown van, he used to drive, and took me down Claiborne and I can't remember the street. It was near the I-10 now. It was in the 7th Ward, I think. And I had been to Stanley's house a lot. Stanley Stevens and I were really close. He was my first New Orleans drummer friend that was older, but not too old. And so he would like sell me like a Sonar teardrop Bob kit, 18, 12, and 14 for $300.
Oh,
like
wow.
that kind of dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of old Ks for 500. And so we had a real tight thing. And then he had hiccups for a year and laid in bed. And he passed. So when he passed, after Herlin told me to stop playing for about an hour, we walked around, and in the front of the house, dude, the mama, Mrs. Stevens, came out. She's probably 400 pounds, so she couldn't go to the funeral. So they brought the funeral to her and Craig. Herlin played bass drum. Shannon was on snare. It was 1990 or 91, and it was the funkiest shit I've ever heard in my effing life, bro. Just so, you're just like, you know, and just like this really deep spiritual community, like, lack of a better term, just some African shit's going on right here that's in New Orleans, but it's like really should be back home. And we're like, why am I witnessing that? It was so deep, and it wasn't 10 or 20 years later that I realized what had actually gone down. You know, and they were just playing for the mom. And the mom was crying. I mean, everybody's crying, but the mom was bawling. Because those are Stanley and Herlin. They all grew up together, man. So that was like, if I was to pass away and you play, you know, we're contemporaries. So he died way too young. So that was my introduction to New Orleans funerals. And I think I got it early on. What was it was about early on? I think that helps me to groove, because I couldn't groove to save my ass until like at least 93, 94. I could swing, but I couldn't groove. So, and then obviously I still check out like a lot of rock and roll that feels good.
Yeah, sure,
Doors, the Doors, you know.
Yeah, and I think I heard you talk a little bit about your groove and how you, I mean, in this, it makes a lot of sense, but, you know, making sure that you're putting your ego aside when you're playing and being present and playing for the music. And one thing that I noticed about your playing, it's even as small as playing behind a bass solo, I can tell that you're always there and present and still playing the music and not just quarter notes for the bass player waiting to trade, you know?
Right. But I went through that. I went through the period where like, oh, I have to be a jazz drummer now, and I got to go to the high end. Or like, then I realized like, I will tell you the deepest moment of my life. I'm in Ouagadougou, Africa, on a 7-week tour with one of those great people, man. Jason and Monica and a guy named Jared Gold on piano, on organ. So we're there for 7 weeks, one country per week. And this is like middle of the tour. And I go for lunch one day at a little cafe in Ouagadougou. And it's just like, you know, a cafe. And this little dude's in the corner, not a little dude, big ass man is in the corner, basically doing a Sunday brunch gig, you know, but it's Wednesday. And he's playing the really beautiful gorded instrument with the 3 strings that you sit down with crossed legs.
Right.
And he's just, man, I'm having a coffee after my whatever, and I'm on the ground, like no sandals, just on the sand with a wooden table, literally like super soulful ass, homegrown country ass. I'm in like South Carolina in 1980 or something, like fucking country as shit. I mean, the country South Carolina, like really out there, the good stuff, which I'm trying to get back to. But this dude was going bang, 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 shake it, black it, black it, black it, black, 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 look at it, look at it, look at it, just playing. And underneath over that, he was going bloom, 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 bang. And I was kind of, my ear had gotten used to the 6/8 African thing being there for 3 or 4 years. And I heard it differently. I heard it backwards. So I heard it's just one. That's all I heard. I didn't hear like jazz dudes going, you know, like the Art Blakey thing. I heard like the real shit. And I would watch ladies make, and I'd say, oh, shit, that's where swing came from, bro. The tension of that 4 over the 6 over 4, that is malleable. It's not Cuban, not the Cuban stiff, but Cuban has a very specific thing. Just like Mexican music, it's very, but African music was like, who gives a fuck if I drop a beat? I don't care. Like, I'm coming back and you know exactly where. And I was like, oh, shako, flacco, shaka de bam. It's like, that's Elvin, man. That's all it is. So it's not like a triplet thing. It's an African thing, and it's just a human thing. I was like, oh, everything in music is either one quarter note or a bunch of quarter notes put together to make a story. And as long as your quarter note's strong, you're cool.
Yeah,
and
right.
Since the last 30 years, my quarter note's gotten stronger every year, and I'm cool. Like, literally, that was an epiphany that happened cliche in Africa, but it had to happen because that was like the real deal. Oh, and I understood New Orleans second line after that. Like really understood what it was. It's clave. But and the 4 is the 1, and you bounce off that, just like you do as the 3, the big 3 in reggae. That's your 1. There's no that's your 1. Chicky on chicky, and the chicky only came on guitar after Bob Marley got back from America. So it's like you understand these things that America keeps moving forward, but misunderstanding at the same time. You know, like, and then all of a sudden they want to be a super hip drummer and have all this Instagram shit. You're like, bro, information, bro. Get the right shit from the source and you'll be cool.
So I want to talk a little bit about a period of your career and life that I don't know too much about. You lived in New York for a while. At what point in your life was that? Was that after you'd been in New Orleans for a long time, or was that?
Yeah, I'd been in New Orleans for 10 years.
Okay.
Got married and we moved to Brooklyn for 7 years. And I was very fortunate enough to be around the corner from an amazing musician, artist, composer, and bass player named Ben Wolf. So we go around, we have sessions, and one day I walk over, Benny Green's up in there. I'm like, damn, wasn't ready for that. Okay, was not on that level yet, but did help kick my ass. And that was 99 to 2006. Yeah, and then I moved to Nashville for a year and figured out Nashville was not the kind of city I'm down with at all. Like, it's cool, but it wasn't really like live. It wasn't deep. It was cool, but this is also 20 years ago. It's so different now. Nashville's totally different now. Bought a house there. Then I moved back to New Orleans for 11 more years.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. So got a divorce and went back there, and I moved back to North Carolina after some life shit happened, and then I think I'm going to be located near, like, I can't say this, bro. I don't know where the hell I'm going, but I think I'm going near Raleigh, Durham, Greensboro, that area, and I'm just going to take a dirt nap a few years from there. Okay, buddy? Yeah, I mean, not too soon. At least 80 or 5.
Yeah.
But, a couple 30 years. But, it's funny because, and I don't mind saying this, man. I don't mind saying this, but, life brings you decisions, and you have to make the decision that is most you as an artist, or you give up being an artist. And every time I've tried to do a normal life, it didn't work for me. Like, I just feel like I have a calling to keep playing the drums, even though I really want to put those bitches down. Like,
do
get
you
on my
really?
damn nerves. I really do, because I don't, man. It's a lot of work being a drummer. Like, you hold your shit. You get paid for everybody else. You make $150, $200, and like, then there's cats out there that are making stupid money playing ridiculous music, and you're just like, so at some point you have to make a decision, like, okay, who are you? And I, Geoff Clapp, I can say at this point, whatever date this is, March 5th or 6th, 24, I'm just a rhythmic conduit for healing. That's literally how I see myself. Who plays the drums? I'm an artist that plays the drums. I'm a little crazy. Definitely got to be a little crazy to do this. That's number one. That should be number one. If you're not a tad crazy, do not ever become a drummer. Because you can't. But I gave up the 2-car and 2.5 kids and nice house my whole life just to do this, because I believe in it, and I believe in my talent, or his talent, not my talent, but the gift. I believe in the gift that resides in my spirit, in my mind. It's not mine. I just use it. It's not really me. I'm actually an asshole. Like most people, I'm not, but most drummer, like, we're selfish, man. We like what we want, but at the same time, I want to do God's will, and I want to say, okay, but when I go to heaven, man, it's done. And it's rare to have a normal, balanced life. And it's kind of like the Mandalorian. It's like you live in the way. It's the way. It's not a religion. It's not a man-made rule-based. It's just a way of, like, responding to situations. So who are some of your favorite drummers?
Oh, gosh.
Who are you checking out?
Oh, man, let's see. Well, and this isn't just to butter you up, but really.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I have a fan. Yes.
Yeah, come on. I got
You're serious?
I got
Wow.
this thing sitting right here on my desk. Your CD redeemed from a few years ago.
Dude, flamenco sketches on that, Peter Martin and Reuben Rogers. You should do that. Though my 2 records are probably some of the greatest records that came out of New Orleans as far as modern jazz are concerned, because I had some of the greatest modern jazz players. It wasn't me. I just know who to put together. And those are my best friends. So it's God. I've done nothing with those records. I haven't toured with it. I've done nothing as a leader, maybe 1 or 2 gigs, because I hate the business of music and I hate the music scene. But I love music.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I just suck at it. But who are you checking out? I mean, seriously, who else are you checking?
Okay, so let's really think about this. Of course, all the usual suspects, but who do I gravitate towards? Blackwell, Higgins,
Whew.
Art Taylor, Al Foster, Billy Drummond.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Never dug into Billy, man. I know he's a bad dude.
Oh, for sure. And then lately, I guess I've been checking out Mark Ferber a lot and Jorge Rossi, but, I like so many different players.
Man, freaking Billy Higgins on Taking Off, that whole record. Every song he plays is so ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
He was always like, he reminded me of, you mentioned him earlier, New Orleans drummer, Ed Blackwell.
Yeah, right.
He and Ed are in the same camp for me. Yeah, because they both play with Ornette.
Yeah, right.
They both have like a very distinct ride cymbal. But it's. I don't know if I could recognize. I could always recognize Billy Higgins, and like it's just like Elmer or Philly or Jimmy Cox, like that, or K-Wash, man.
Oh yeah, I love Kenny,
dude. Okay, here's a lesson right here, and y'all can Venmo me at Geoff Clapp 70 if you like for this information. So I'm at the Vanguard checking out Kenny Washington with, I don't even remember who was in the band, because I was, literally sitting and just staring at Kenny for 3 hours, both sets. And I said, hey, Mr. Washington, I'm a drummer, blah, 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 blah. What can I work on? He said, man, get a Mod Jamal trio before the drummer with Ray Crawford on guitar, 1955, Columbia Records. And he said, learn every arrangement and play it on the middle of the beat, the whole record. Play it on the back of the beat, the whole record. And he's like, here's what's going to hook you up. Play on the front of the beat, the whole record. He's like, I play on the front of the beat, but not everybody's born to. And that was it. And he walked away. I was like, cool. So ever since then, I just give my students, hey, man, can you play this on the back of the beat and keep it there? And I feel like Billy Higgins is one of those motherfuckers who, like, his shit is on the back of the beat, but it's not. It's like on the front, but it's not. This is in the middle, but it's not. Whereas Vernell is in the middle. And Elvin's kind of, and Hutch is way on top. Blade's like, I don't even know what Blade is. He's in his own stratosphere. And Herlin said the same thing. Herlin said, hey, man, shed on a metronome at 70, then go to 72, then go back to 68. 70, 72, 68. And he said, I guarantee you won't rush or drag as bad. You might. But he's like, you definitely will start feeling in your dance because you're, when you move. All right, here's something if I die today, here's something for the record books right here. Always play the drums and groove from your ass.
Well, this is something I actually wanted you to talk about. So this is beautiful.
Period.
Yeah.
Dance. You have to dance from the seat to create the beat. Period. If you're not dancing, no one's dancing. And the problem with a lot of white drummers is they feel like dancing. I mean, obviously it's not part of our culture, but it's cultural. And why not pick up something that you feel like I felt, man, I don't know what it'd be called. It felt a familiarity with New Orleans and its people. They just happened to be black, or they were like light skin or dark skin or white or whatever they were. I just felt their groove. I felt like when I talked to them, man, they would slow down a little bit and they would just be like, yeah, man, I'm here. I'm present. What's up, bro? Like, have you ever listened to Doug Belote? You know who that is?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so when he plays Doug. Nobody can sound like that dude. And he can cover any kind of gig on him, and Stanton too. Stanton sounds like Stanton. All these cats sound like themselves. And that's like, you really don't get that in New York. I can think of 3 drummers that sound like themselves in New York, right? Other than that, nobody sounds like Louis Nash, but Louis Nash. Peter Erskine sounds like Peter Erskine. Like this. I mean, of course, he had like ridiculous experience with the greatest cats ever.
Right. Well, since you brought up the idea of dancing and dancing in your seat as you're playing, when I was in New Orleans about 5 years ago, we went down there for oh gosh, I think 5 weeks. So I was able to see a lot of great music. It was a point in my life where I was working for myself and didn't have a whole lot of responsibility, and I could do that.
Right.
So we saw a lot of music. I saw Herlin, and did you ever see the conga player Ellis Marsalis?
Dude, he is so bad and so strong. One of the most underrated percussionists in the world.
I mean, I saw him and Herlin play together. It was ridiculous.
I played about maybe 10 gigs with Alexa would call me for shit. And I played about 10 gigs with him. And every time it was completely different. I was unprepared and he kicked my ass. I was like, this dude is like, so Herlin is more his style. I mean, like, I can play with him now, but back 15 years ago, I was nowhere near ready to play with that dude.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Did he give you a hug? Did you meet him?
I did not meet him. But what I was going to say is I went over to Johnny Vodakovich's house and took a lesson, right? Yeah.
All right, so hold on, stop there. What did y'all do, man? Did you sit in the kitchen for an hour?
We did not, but I'll tell you. So got in his house, played with the little dogs for a little while.
The 16 little dogs.
Yeah, right.
Well, he had like 4 dogs, right? 3 or 4 dogs.
I think he had at least 3 when I was there.
Is that little black one still alive?
I don't know.
Because one of them's an asshole. The other 2 are sweethearts. But one just freaking like. Sorry, man. Oh, sorry. You can edit that out. Sorry,
no. It's all good. But what I was going to say is,
talk about?
Yeah, well, we're getting right back to dancing. The first thing that he did was say, okay, stand up from the drums. Let's just sing and dance. And
dude, that is it.
We were just singing. I think we were just singing "Happy Birthday" or the Flintstones or something, And then in the middle of all that, he's just kind of guiding me. He's like, okay, now sit down on the drums and keep dancing, but now play the drums too and keep singing. It was amazing.
And why did it take a motherfucker from so south down to tell you that? I'm gonna tell you why. Because corporate capitalism, all the consumerism, it just steals the soul from people. And Johnny has had the same drums. He's got the worst drums I've ever heard in my life. He tunes them. I mean, I can go on Guitar Center sound bad, but when he plays them,
come on. Mm-hmm.
And now I know why Brian always talks about JV. And I had a lesson with him, dude. I sat down for 5 minutes in front of him, and he went like this. I can't even do it because I'm not that bad, but I was like, what? And I'm like, boom, boom, chapter, you can do it. He's like, no, halftime. I'm like, boom. He's like, no, half of that. I'm like, boom. I'm like, and I just couldn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just grooving. His time was impeccable.
Yeah.
Man. And yeah, so man.
Yeah, really. And the other thing he said to me, he's like, you got to stop working on, he called it drumistic. He's like, you got to stop working on drumistic stuff and start working on music. And that's it.
Man, listen, God bless all the great teachers. God bless all the cats, man. But that's some real shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You walk off that porch and did you meet Debbie? Was she there?
I did not meet her that day. I think she was around, but I didn't meet her.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
And their daughter's awesome. Yeah, you just brought back a flood of memories, man. And if you talk to Johnny, I mean, he's out of his mind. But like, he's always been out of his mind because he chooses not to live here. He chooses not to live where everybody else lives. He knows all about it. Man, I remember being 15, do you remember Ben Sidran?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
My drum teacher growing up played with Ben Sidran.
What?
Yeah.
Ben's a bad dude. Anyway, he had that jazz show on VH1 or whatever.
I remember. Yeah.
And so I clicked it on one night, and I just finished Bring on the Night. Like, literally, like, was pumped. Like, I'm 15. I want to get out of High Point. Help me, God. And Johnny Vodakovich was duo with John Scofield. And I was like, he's got a bass drum, a snare drum, and a hi-hat. I'm like, what? And dude, I was just for 30 minutes. I'm like, who is this cat? He's an alien. And I'm like, what? So that was actually my really first New Orleans drummer, and I've actually ever heard. Now I think about it.
Okay.
So big ups to JV, man. And JV got me a gig JV's got me so many gigs, man. He got me a gig with a cat named Michael Casehammer, who's a beautiful Canadian pianist, super awesome. Boogie Woogie cat. And so JV was on his records. And when JV was, dealing with the thing, he said, hey, Clapp, can you do these gigs for me in a couple of years? But I got to heal up. And that was like JV's just nothing but a big brother. Him and Stanton Moore. Stanton Moore too, even though we're equals, and he can't swing like I can, but I can't groove like he can. Okay. And I'll tell him that today. He can't fuck with my brushes either. All right, Stanton? Can't fuck with that. But I can't fuck with your rock. Dude, no one's ever heard Stanton Moore as a hard rock drummer. He is probably the baddest hard rock drummer that ever lived.
I've heard him with Galactic.
Yeah, oh man, dude, that's his thing. That's his thing. I mean, he can funk and swing, but Stanton Moore's a hard rock, just like Geoff Clapp's a James Taylor drummer. Do you know that Steve Jordan with JT in '98 live at the Beacon Theater?
I'm sure I've heard it, but I don't know it terribly well.
YouTube it, man. YouTube it. In every song. I mean, getting back to the point, that's a practicing drummer, man.
Mm-hmm.
A dude like Steve Jordan can go in and be under the radar and make all the music feel, sound, and it's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And he just does it and leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And he sets up like a jazz drum. I mean, Steve wants to be a jazz drummer. He's so bad. He's like, that's the quintessential practicing drummer. He can do everything. Let's talk about Questlove, and Quest is a super bad motherfucker.
Oh, yeah.
But Steve Jordan to me is like, he's like the Steve Gadd today. He's so bad. He's so bad.
You brought up brush playing, and that's another thing I have on my list here that I want to ask you about. What was your process for learning brushes? Like who got you into brushes and kind of straightened you out with?
Ellis Marsalis. Yeah, one day he came up to me at the PAC at UNO in room 103. He said, "Clap." He would always say, he was always so respectful, so well spoken. He would walk up and be like, "All right, Mr. Clapp, time to pay you for the gig. You got change for $1." I'm like, "Ha, new material, buddy." But he came up one day. He's like, "Man," he's like, he called me Jeff. He goes, "Yeah, Jeff, you got the best brushes I've seen in a long time." And so that I translated in my mind, like, wow, I can actually play the brushes. Like, so that gave me the okay in my mind to move forward. And I would practice brushes on the back of the toilet at my girlfriend's house every night. I would put a stool in there and put the seat down, the lid down, and just go to town. And then within a year or so, I just like had this style.
Were you playing along to records or what?
Playing to Oscar Peterson, Cole Porter. When Ellis would say something, bro, he would say it. He wouldn't fuck around. He meant it. You know, like I walked up to him one day when I thought I was something. I said, "Man, I've never seen so many bass players in one room." It was like 12 people lining up for bass auditions for the big man. And he said, "No, Mr. Clapp." Oh, I actually went, "No, Mr. Clapp, you've never seen so many people with basses in one room." I was like, "What?" You know, he didn't fuck around, man. So he would just say little things that would make you like really make you think for yourself. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And he loved him some Brian Blade, man. Brian was like, to me, like Brian really lifted him up. And every time I heard the trio with Brian and Ellis and Chris Thomas, it was just a whole nother Ellis Marsalis. I could never get Ellis to that level. Dude, Ellis, he would say something and it would land in your spirit. It would land in your heart, you know? And he said, you're one of the best brush players. And you keep telling me how good my brushes were. So I believed it. I was like, well, I guess I'm pretty good at brushes. And that's what like got me to be, and that's what Charlie Hunter loves. He loves my brushes. I don't know about my sticks, but he definitely loves the brushes, you know? And so when I was hanging with Charlie, when I got back to North Carolina, man, he said, "Man, you need to get on Instagram." And I was like, "What is that? Isn't that like TikTok or something stupid?" He said, "No, man, I get a lot of work off that. I get a lot of, and he was like, "You need to do it." And so what do? He said, "Well, you do your brushes." So my very first Instagram video, if you go back, is me going like this. And he's holding the camera going, "Yeah, clap. Yeah, clap." And so just having super bad motherfuckers like that believing in you, like a Charlie Hunter, man. Because I've known Charlie, you know, we used to play a lot. And I would sub for Derek. But he would say, "Hey, man, you got something to say on the brushes." And I didn't believe it for about 2 years. And then COVID hit. And you know, it became this. And that's when I said, okay, I need to do that. and I would do it. And some really cool shit came about, and I got a lot of lessons from it.
Oh, yeah.
So as a practicing drummer, YouTube, I mean, not YouTube, but Instagram's a tool. Like anything in life's a tool. Money, cars, music, drums. They're a tool for a purpose. So his purpose is, he was like, hey, man, you have this talent, you know? And so when you swing out for so long and you actually do it for real, like you're really actually swinging, you're not just playing brushes, it translates when you play funk into like a very lively feel. Like I'm not a funk ganger at all. I'm no Lil Jon. I'm no Aaron Spears. Like I'm not at all. I've even seen Hutch really funk out.
Okay, so I can't let you go without asking about New Orleans food. I'm just curious if you have. I'm just curious. Do you have any favorite spots that you go back to when you're there?
All right, I'll start here. If you're a drummer and you want to go sit in, but you want to have some wine and food, go to Bacchanal Wine Bar, Poland and Charters.
Yeah.
If you want the best po' boy you've ever had in your life with women who've been there for 30 years and handle the money and the bread at the same time, Don Alisi's. Or if that's closed, go to Parkway Tavern.
Right.
Don't go to Guy's Po' Boy because they don't have beer, but they're really great po' boys. Coffee, I would say right now, who's kicking ass is French Truck Coffee, magazine, and Rado. I mean, you know, Mothers to me, bro. Mothers has always been solid. It's out of the quarter. It's on Poydras and Chapatulas or whatever that's Decatur, and it's pretty solid, man. Snug Harbor Burger, Snug Harbor Hamburger, or fish sandwich. Snug Harbor. Well, no, the Snug Harbor, you know, my favorite Snug Harbor thing is, and if you want a heart attack, it's called the Fried Oyster Burger. Fried Oyster Burger.
Sounds dangerous.
Ridiculous. And their gumbo's killing.
Yeah.
They're in Porterhouse. Like, there's so many places, man. But, okay, two more. Dookie Chase.
Absolutely.
Leah Chase. Yeah, Dookie Chase. I played so many gigs in that place, man.
Oh, really? I didn't know they had music in there.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, Leah Chase is a singer. You know, her daughter. Dude, honestly, the thing about New Orleans is like the drummers and the food are always at least good.
Yeah, that's right.
There are no sad drummer. There's not one sad drummer in New Orleans I've ever heard. Ever.
Yeah.
So you can't really go wrong, but those are my spots.
All right, cool. Yeah. So other than food and seeing as much music as possible, what else would you suggest to a drummer that really wants to get into the music and the culture of New Orleans?
Well, go get some lessons, man. Go to Treme, go to Shannon's house, go to Herlin's house. You know, but pay cats nicely.
Oh, yeah.
You know, honestly, I mean, pay them, man. Pay them because they're giving you like years of information. You know, are you going to pay $20,000 to go to a jazz school here, or $300 to freaking change your life in like 1 hour?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the real deal, Holyfield. Because Ray Charles, James Brown, all those cats hung out with the cats, man. They hung out with them. It's just about sacrificing your time to get to but you got to know your goal. You got to know where you want to be. And the thing about that, you'll never know really where you're supposed to be. So you keep doing what you do and you make the best of it, but you'll never know. It's just like when you start a drum solo, you have no idea what you're about to play. But you know in your mind you're going to kill it, and you're not going to care about what that dude thinks, and you're just going to go for it. And then afterwards, you're going to humble yourself and get back to the time. Those are my words. I think that was a good session. Let's end on that.
I think that's good. Is there anything you want to promote or have people check out before we sign off?
Honestly, man, hit me up for a lesson. I love to teach at every age. And
I'll link to your Instagram for sure. I'll link to some of these YouTube videos that I like.
You know, I don't have anything to advertise. What I have to advertise, dude, just love people, man.
Yeah.
Be a better human being. That's what I have to advertise, man. You know, go watch a movie and be inspired, or just put some headphones on, watch a movie and play drums while you're watching. That's what I would promote.
All right, Geoff. Well, I really appreciate this. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, Craig. Much love to you, bro. Thank you. And in ending, man, thank you for having me. Thank you for listening to my story.
Oh, my pleasure, man. My pleasure.
God bless you, man.
All right. Bye, man. Thanks for listening. If you like the show, please subscribe on your platform of choice and share it with a friend. You can find the show at practicingdrummer.com or on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram as Practicing Drummer.